Hello again. This time I'm going to talk about Azer's very popular video titled New Players Headed the Wrong Way, and also discussion. If you have been around on Twitter, you should have seen this video linked in discussions surrounding the game many times, as a response and as a reaction to the game's current PP meta, and that players focus on PP far too much. Some have even argued that the points made in the video have become more relevant every year. So what points did Azer make in the video? Let's get into them. Before I start, please note that this isn't an epic debunking video. I'm simply analyzing the arguments and see if they stood up to the test of time. And obviously, you should have watched his video before this one. However, I will put clips from his video into this one to show exactly what I'm responding to. So overall, he made 2 points. The first one is that players start playing AR10 way too early, turning them into WhackaMole players.
We live in an era of players who just want to go fast. Everything must be AR10 or they just can't play it. We also have players looking up to those people and telling themselves they must play AR10 too when it's far too soon in their learning curve to be able to play it. What results of those players is people playing Whack-A-Mole. They throw all sense of rhythm out of the window and just react to fast objects on the screen instead of playing a rhythm game.
And 2, players focus on farming PP and not enjoying the game.
Another kind of player in this era is the player who came after the introduction of Tom's PP system and only care about growing that number on their profile. These are the players who spend 100% of their playtime talking to Tillerino and just trying to find the next overweighted map they can set a score on. Generally, these players only end up playing DT or no mod at all.
For the first one, he's right. We have seen a lot of new players saying AR9 is too slow, and then proceed to claim that they can read very high ARs like 10.5 and even higher. Like myself, but unlike yours truly, these players are ranked 300k. They lack the actual reading and often the mechanical skill needed to play these ARs properly. So they just end up flinging their cursors around and getting 80% accuracy on aim maps. As someone who can't read below AR10, and personally was one of those Whack-A-Mole players that Azer was talking about, I found that AR10 and later higher ARs were as high as it went. Compared to something like OD10, which new players often will have massive difficulties dealing with, or HP10, which is just downright unplayable, in combination that the top players were mostly all DT players playing high AR maps, new players would obviously focus on that for a sense of perhaps easy improvement. While it's obvious that players are becoming Whack-A-Mole players, here's the controversial part. What's wrong with that? I say this to provoke you, as I'm obviously aware of the problem that players playing a single type of maps and becoming one-tricks is not healthy for the game, especially when it comes to the ranking system. But that's not what I'm arguing here. The point I'm arguing is that what is wrong with their way of playing the game? As individual players, they have no reason to care about the ranking system at all. To argue how they choose to enjoy the game, a very subjective thing, has the right way, and that these players are not enjoying the game, when the reality is that these new players choose to play like this precisely because this is the way they enjoy the game. It's frankly wrong, and in my opinion, somewhat elitist. Azer doesn't make this point in the video, at least not outright, and I don't know if this is what he thinks. But what I do see is that this video is often linked as a way to say that farmers and aim one tricks are not enjoying the game and therefore bad. Again, they do enjoy the game, just in a different way. A comparison would be Counter-Strike. There are multiple game modes in CS, matchmaking, or face it, or ESEA if you don't enjoy losing to spin bots, surfing, KC, and B-hopping, and so on. But that doesn't mean that players are headed towards the wrong way if they are playing matchmaking. And that also doesn't mean that surf and b-hopping are easy. Imagine how stupid a KC player would look like if they were arguing that these matchmaking players weren't enjoying the game like them. Something Azer did say, and was very accurate in saying, is that in the future, these top players would be all Whack-A-Mole players, which has happened. But the real question here is that spamming aim maps and being aim one tricks is something that we see new players doing a lot for perhaps the last 6 years or so. So why is that the case? This leads us to a second point, that players are focused on farming PP, and people who do so are the majority of the player base. I believe his second point is the reason behind the first. Why do players play aim maps all day and nothing else? It's because they give more PP, mostly. There are other reasons why people enjoy playing aim maps, such as finding them to be more mechanically intensive and therefore more enjoyable to them, or that they unironically think that this could help them in FPS games. The second one is particularly hilarious because actual aim trainers, or playing the actual games, does more to help with aim than Osu could ever do. There are even more reasons than these two, but I'm not going to get into all of them for the sake of argument, and it's abundantly clear that PP is the main reason. One of the reasons why Osu is extremely popular is because of PP, the ranking system. It gives players a goal to move towards as they gain more PP. It is clear that PP pushes players into becoming one-tricks, but that is because the current system of PP is flawed, and not that PP itself as a concept is bad. A good example is that a few years ago, speed used to be extremely underweighted, and there were only a handful of speed players. But now that speed has been buffed, not perfectly, obviously, as it underweights stamina, overvalues burst, and does not consider finger control, there are a lot more speed players, currently. PP provides an incentive for players to play certain maps, because players want to rank up. Aim, and combo to a lesser extent, are overweighted, while reading, finger control, and so on are underweighted. But again, this has nothing to do with PP as a concept. These are only criticisms of the current system, and not the concept behind it. The PP system is flawed, obviously. The meta is plagued by issues such as dip spikes, double tapping, and again aim being overweighted. What we should do is to improve the system, which there are attempts of, both pretty decent and downright terrible. And not to reject the entire system, which a small part of the community continues to argue for, which is quite alarming, as again, most people play this game because of the existence of a ranking system. Of course, I'm not stupid, despite how I present myself. I'm very much aware that the system can never be perfect. But that's not a valid point now, is it? Pointing out that the system can never be perfect does not equate to how making improvements on the system is meaningless. Making the system better would mean that the competitive scene would look better, as players now have the incentive to play maps other than aim maps. Or, what about an alternative ranking system? Many of my viewers may know this, but for those who don't, Osu Skills is an alternate ranking system that gives a value for different skills on a given score. But instead of giving a overall final value like PP, there is a leaderboard for each skill. In this system, there is no rank 1 overall, only rank 1 in a particular skill. So the issue of a particular skill being overweighted is solved, as there's no comparison between the skills. But the competition that PP brings remains. I'd even argue that it provides more motivation for players to stop being one-tricks, since being a one-trick could get them so far in only one leaderboard. If they want to climb another leaderboard, they have to play other skills and expand their skills. Osu's skill, however, still isn't perfect, as the maps can still be overweighted within the particular skill set, and people can still be overranked in a given leaderboard, like myself. But instead of PP, where balancing is a mess, because changing one map's PP or one skill's PP would often severely and negatively affect the values of other maps. Only the same skill set needs to be considered under the system. Personally, I find Osu skills to be much better than PP, and I hope that more people can learn about the system, so that one day we can have a better ranking system that does not incentivize one-tricking. So that's my second video. I hope you enjoyed this one, since that this type of discussion video is what I set out to do on YouTube in the first place. Hopefully you also noticed the improvements to the editing and also audio since I got a new mic.